Hi! Welcome to another Tales by Moonlight session. Hey Motley crew. So, I'm gonna do this a little differently today. Where's my... Oh my gosh, it disappeared. Am I sitting on it? Found it. Okay, so I have my super food smoothie. It took me a couple of minutes to say that without saying super smooth smoothie, which I just said. And I'm actually going to do a video on how I make this. This is very nutritious, very yummy, and it has like all the things. Seriously, like all of the things. Veggies, fruits, seeds, berries, all of the yummy antioxidants, adaptogens, anti-inflammatory properties. It's amazing. I love it. So I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to set the sacred space before we begin. Water. And allow whatever to come up. I have a couple ideas, but I'm not sure. So we're just going to go with the flow here as usual. All of this is with the flow of the divine. So setting the sacred space. I set the intention that I'm a clear channel of the highest truth, all rooted in the highest love, always. That I share my story openly, fully, and freely, in a way that honors all participants involved. So, bullying. Let's talk about bullying. I need a sip for that. I was bullied a lot growing up. And it's so interesting because I grew up in a predominantly Black community in a very multicultural city called Oakland. And I was bullied just for being different, as kids often do, you know. It's not always like being bullied for looking different. Well, I can't say looking differently. I was bullied for having darker skin. I was called African booty scratcher so many times, y'all. This was before it became cool to be African. Like now everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're Nigerian. I listen to Afro beats and I'm like, I love that for you. I love that for you. But back then, it was not cool to be African. It was not cool to be Nigerian. And so I got bullied a lot. I got bullied for dressing differently. I came to the States when I was young, and you know, my mom didn't know the fashion senses of the community, and we also didn't have money to be going out and buying fresh kicks and clothing. So majority of our clothing came from the thrift store. Before it was cool to thrift, this was when only poor folks went to the thrift store. And because I grew up very much working class, poor, that's what I had to wear. And my mom didn't know how to dress me in the ways that I would see my peers dressed. So I looked a bit off in terms of like what other folks are wearing. And so I was bullied a lot for looking differently, but also speaking differently. So when I go home, my parents would speak Pidgin English or Igbo to me. I didn't learn from my parents how to speak what we consider standard American English, and I don't like to use proper English. And when I went into the community, the people around me spoke African American Vernacular English, or AV, or Bonics, however you want to call it. And so I really had to learn how to navigate these two different cultures and spaces of being African, like going home and being Igbo, and then going out into the world and being African American but not really fully fitting in and learning how to meld myself. But then being in a wider world, society, where I still knew that I'm black, and being black was considered less than white. I knew that as a kid. So I was bullied a lot for just not looking, speaking, sounding like everyone else. And that really impacted me, because, you know, when I was home, I was, you know, if you listen to my previous episode, I was an outsider. I didn't feel like I was seen or loved. And then I went back into the community of my peers, and I was also very much not accepted, seen, or loved for who I was. And so I never really felt like I fit in anywhere or I belonged anywhere. I remember elementary school, like my mom decided that she was done with my hair because it was just too much for her, and she decided to cut it off, to shave it off. And I went to school bald-headed. And I just remember the day so vividly because of the relentless amount of, and I wish it was just teasing. It wasn't just teasing. It was being cussed out. It was people pulling my like hat off of my head, people pushing me. And I was just like, from going to school with no hair. Throughout like elementary school, I would always fear being jumped by other kids because they would like do things like spit on me and push me and hit me and just really, really cruel, really mean towards me. And, you know, because, you know, I have a brother who is the same age as me. We had a lot of the same classes until they split us up, maybe like second or third grade. But I also had a younger sister who we ended up being in the same school for a couple of years as well. And I also found myself like having to, I would stand up for myself. I didn't like the idea of fighting, but I had to fight. It was one of those things where like, if you did not fight, it would be worse. And so I had to learn. I had to learn to cuss people out. I had to learn to cuss people's mamas and grandmas out. I had to learn to defend myself and defend my brother and my sister, because it was on me as the second mama, as the female first daughter, to be this de facto parent for my siblings. And so I had to learn how to defend them too, even when I needed defending myself. And I didn't get much sympathy, I remember, from my parents. I'd go home and tell them that they were making fun of me or like bullying me, and my mom would be like, well, did you tell the teacher? I'm like, that's not how, you can't just be a snitch on the playground. You know, there's consequences for doing that. Like, they're just gonna jump you. And it's just like, she just didn't understand the psychology of the playground bully and the playground arena that I had to navigate, because she was an American. She was not American, and I had no one to guide me in this new culture that I had found myself in. Very different. So it was this weird sense of like wanting to fit in but not knowing how, and also just being very different in general. Like it took me 29 years to find out that I was neurodivergent. It took me a long time, and it's interesting because thinking back to how I was as a kid, of like seeing people play and being in certain ways and just never knowing how to navigate the same social situations. It took me a while, and because of that, because I was a bit odd, you know, I must admit I was a bit odd. I was different. I also was bullied for that too. So I found myself often in the library. That was my safe haven. Books were my safe haven. And so interestingly enough, I taught myself how to read. I would read books. I would just always be reading. During recess or during lunchtime, I would just go to the library. And the library and I, as well as my brother, we became really good friends. And this is like something that I continued up until high school, But I would just like go to the library because I just couldn't deal with the other kids and the rowdiness and the noise. Like I realized I was also very sensitive to noise and lights and all of that. So I taught myself how to read, and in the process of reading, in the process of listening, I taught myself how to speak in the way that most people would consider standard English. Like, I can code switch really well, and that's something I had to teach myself. And so bullying, it was something that really made me feel like I wasn't safe anywhere, because I'd go home and I definitely wasn't safe there, and I'd come out and I definitely wasn't safe with my peers. And it's interesting, I remember this one particular moment which really just highlights how bullied I was when I went to this after school program starting like 10, and they'd pick us up, the kids, they would go to the different schools in the neighborhood and pick the students up and bring them to the after school program. And after school program was pretty much like based out of church, ran by this priest who wanted to like provide a safe place for students in the community to go to so they wouldn't be on the streets, essentially. And so I'd go to this after school program, and I was waiting at the 7-Eleven at the corner store, waiting to get picked up. And I remember this day, it was like a particular gray day, it had rained some, and on this day I decided to wear white pants because I was like, I'm trying to look cute, let me wear my white pants with my like pink, I remember, if you guys remember, like the pink see-through shoes that you could like wear different color socks and the socks would show through. I don't know what they're called, but anyways, I was wearing those. I looked good, I felt good, and at this time I was able to buy some new clothes because the after school program also paid you for good grades, and because I got good grades, because that was an expectation, I was able to get some new clothes. So I was feeling really good this day. And so we're at the 7-Eleven, there's a group of kids, they're all being loud and rowdy, we're waiting for the bus to come. And one of the kids, this boy, he comes up to me waving his BB gun in my face. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Can't just leave me alone, can ya? And he's waving it in my face, and he's like threatening to shoot me, and I'm like, just don't, please. Like, leave me alone. Like, I don't want the smoke. I don't want any issues. And I tell him, like, look, if you do that, though, there will be consequences. Because I had to learn to be very clear with people. Like, I don't like to fight, but if you tryna, then I'm going to have to defend myself. And he starts to laugh, and then he shoots me in the face with this BB gun. And it hurt. It hurt. And at this point, I'm like sighing because, again, I don't like to fight. It's not something I enjoy doing. And I know that I have to defend myself, because when you don't defend yourself in those situations, they will pick on you more. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a warning. If you do it again, I'm going to have to hit you. I don't want to do it. Don't do it again. So he decides to try me. He fucked around and found out. And he shoots me again. And this time I'm like, all right, I guess I have to. So I ended up punching him in the face, and his head just swivels and hits the side of the 7-Eleven wall pretty hard. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So we're fighting. He's hitting me, I'm hitting him. Mind you, like I said before, it's raining and I have white pants on. So I'm really like not trying to get dirty, and I'm not trying to fight, because I didn't want to mess up my outfit on top of all that. And because it has been raining, and because I had on these like slippery plastic shoes, I end up slipping and falling on my back. So now he's climbing on top of me, he's hitting me, and I remember my brother being there just watching, and I'm like, get him off of me. Like, my brother was a very quiet, small kid, and I always felt like he was my younger brother, even though we were the same age, so I couldn't really depend on him to like protect me or take care of me in any type of way. So he's watching, and I'm like, yo, get him off of me. And all the kids are like circling around, like, oh, they got you. Like, talking shit. And I'm like, get him off me, get him off me. And eventually, like, they pull him off of me. And at that point, I'm just like, oh, like, I didn't want to have to fight. And and here we are. So I thought that was it. But then we get on the bus, and all of a sudden, they're like, oh my gosh, oh, guess what's going to be waiting for you when we get to the after school program. And now at this point, I'm like, okay, they're going to jump me. And I just knew, like, they're going to jump me. And then, because his older sister also went to the after school program as well. So I'm on the bus, and I feel this sense of like trepidation and just weight in my stomach of like, okay, now I know I'm going into the lion's den, and I don't know what's going to happen when I get off this bus. And the bus drops us off, and there's like a group of 4 girls just standing there, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them. And his older sister steps up and it's like, I heard you fought my brother. Why you put your hands on my brother? Like, who told you could talk to, like, touch my brother like that? It's a lot of that. And the other 3 girls are standing, saying, waiting to square up. And it was like, and they asked me to hit them. And that's an interesting thing, because I realized when it comes to fights, they always want you to hit them first, so then they have an excuse to fight you. But I'm not the type of person to be goaded into a fight. So I'm like, I'm not going to hit you first. I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not prone to violence in that way. Like, I have no ego. Like, I'm inside, I'm thinking this. And she's really just in my face. And I'm like, okay, I'm backing up, because I'm not trying to engage with her. I'm not trying to get jumped. I'm not trying to have anyone have an excuse to jump me. And I just remember, just at a certain point, just something came over me, and I was just like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. And if you're not going to hit me, I have better things to do. And I said that to these girls. And I did the riskiest thing. And I just walked away. I turned my back to them and walked away, I gave them an opening. And I walked away, because at that point I realized, like, look, if they're going to jump me, they're going to jump me. There's nothing that I can do. So let me just surrender and tell them I got better things to do. And I could see the moment I said that, just the look of shock on their face. Like, did she just say she got better things to do? And it's so interesting, because it's this experience of, like, people really wanting to fight me, people really wanting to jump me, that just followed me throughout, like, childhood. Like, girls were always wanting to fight me. Unfortunately, at this after school program, the boys were pretty violent too. They would just go up and just smack me in the head or smack my butt. And it was like sexually assaulting. A lot of sexual assault as well. But I always had the experience of just people wanting to just, like, fight me and not like me. And me never knowing who was a friend or who was a foe. Because even the people who I thought were friends would then do things and betray me. This is like back in the day where texting wasn't free. Okay, you have to pay to text. And I remember this one girl who I thought was my friend. I don't know, I was probably like 11 at that time. She was like, oh, my cousin likes you. They saw your pictures on MySpace, y'all, back in the day. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me talk to your cousin then. So we ended up talking, and that was like my first official boyfriend. It was like talking to this other guy through phone, who I had met on MySpace through my friend. And I remember the one day when eventually he tells me, and we had been talking for like, a couple of months. It was like very, childlike things, talking about our days, talking about everything under the sun. And I remember he tells me, oh, the only reason I decided to, like, be your boyfriend was because I was dared to. It was a dare, and it was a joke by the person who I thought was my friend. And so I experienced, like, and again, to feel the feeling of betrayal, to know that I was the butt of a joke, and that all of it was made up to hurt me by someone who was supposed to be my friend, was an experience I unfortunately had throughout my life. And it started in when I was young. I would love to say that that was the last time I was betrayed by a friend, but it continued and forward into my adult years. And so I've always had this interesting, tenuous relationship with others wanting to hurt me. And I realize now, growing up, it's because I was different, and I've always been different. And when you are different, and people see that, and they see something in you that is special or unique, some people they just want to snuff it out. They just want to stomp it out. They want to stomp your light out. Because growing up, I thought there was something wrong with me that made people want to treat me like that. And because of that, like, what was going on at home, and me, like, not really having friends, or having friends who were jealous or who would treat me in a mean way, I thought that, okay, it must be me. It must be me, because everything is being reflected back at me as if I am the problem. Come to realize now, like, I've done all the healing work, and now I can, like, laugh about, like, the things that happen, and hold those people in forgiveness, and just be like, yeah, they didn't know what they were doing. But in the process of it occurring, it definitely reinforced this idea of, like, me not being worthy or enough, or that there being something wrong with me because of how people are treating me. And so I just wanted to talk about bullying, because we don't talk about the psychological scars and the trauma that can leave on someone, of not feeling safe with your peers, not feeling like a sense of belonging with the people you're supposed to belong with. Ooh, I need to drink some water. I don't have any, so I'm gonna drink this. Refreshing. But it does, like, bullying can really set the stage for loneliness moving forward, for feeling ostracized, different, other. And that is definitely how I felt growing up, especially with, like, how people treated me, and feeling like it just wasn't enough. Now moving forward, it's interesting because I was going to this crystal shop, and at the crystal shop I had on my favorite pair of a jean skirt. It's like a wrap jean skirt. It's just so easy to get in and out of. It's amazing. And the woman who worked there remarked, like, oh my God, I love your jean skirt. It's, like, so cool. Like, I wore that when I was younger, but, like, I thought it was, like, nerdy or something like that. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. People love telling me about their lives. And then she mentions, like, but then I met a girl. I was, like, around with these kids, and she was like, you know, I'm glad I'm weird, because it's the weird kids who end up becoming cool when they get older. And I was like, right. I was like, that kid is right. It is the weirdos who end up becoming the cool kids when they're older. So for any of y'all who feel like you are weird, just know that you being in your unique, authentic self means that you are cool by me. Too many people are out here walking around trying to be normal. And you know what being normal is? It means being a cookie cutter person. It means that you have accepted that this is how you should do things, this is how you should behave, and you can't color outside the box, or you can't step outside the box in any way, because that is dictated and determined for you. We are all weird. Every single one of us, however billions of us, are all uniquely who we are. And very few people, whether by choice or not, because not everyone can hide and mask their weirdness. That's something I've learned to do, is to hide and mask the weird parts of me that aren't socially acceptable. And I'm in the process now of allowing my authenticness to come through and being like, yes, I am a weirdo. And that's okay. And that is absolutely okay. And so, I don't know how I got here, y'all. I was talking about bullying and just the difficulty growing up being around people. And then I talked about just, okay, it was weird. I was weird. I am weird. And not everyone can handle that. And that's okay. And it doesn't reflect on me if someone can enjoy and accept my weirdness. It has more to do with their comfortability with themselves. So yeah, bullying was a lot. That was a lot. All my life I had to fight. I wish that wasn't true, but it was. It was. How many of y'all have stories of like having to like fight when you're not wanting to fight, or having to learn how to cuss people out because that was the only way they would like respect you? If that's the experience you have, definitely talk about it. Drop it down below. It's just, allow yourself to be seen in that experience. Because bullying really does impact you. It does, and we as a society don't take it. We take it seriously, but it's not taken as seriously as it should be when it comes to the emotional scars that it can really leave. So that's what I got. That's the story I wanted to share about bullying. Yeah. Oh, there's also, am I going to talk about this? I'm going to save that for a later bit. So that's what I got. Thank you as always for taking time to listen. I will be restarting my podcast series and doing more spiritual teachings, sharing wisdom, insights, ancient wisdom, and esoteric knowledge. On this channel, I just wanted to get the ball rolling regarding my own personal story, so y'all can see like where I'm coming from. Again, when you can see me now, but did you see me then? Two different people, and just the process of growth, the process of healing that I've gone through. And I really hope that in me sharing my story that you can see that you can do it too. If you are in a place of still experiencing a lot of the impacts of trauma, of abuse, of bullying, of whatever it may be, of pain and wounding, limiting beliefs, ancestral, generational trauma and patterns in your life, that you know that you can overcome, that there is the possibility for a new day, one that is based in peace and love and harmony within, and that is aligned to your authentic self and true essence as divine and co-creator. So thank you for being with me here today, Motley Crew. I always appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, know that I appreciate you and I love you. I'm sending you off with